Excellent. We'll get started. I hope everyone's doing well, and thank you very much for joining us today. Today is all about SYSPRO 8. My name's Darshini Shah, and I'm the product manager here with K3 SYSPRO. Joining me today is Lucia Mundignano, who is our technical sales consultant. I've been with SYSPRO here in K3 since 2018, but in and around the SYSPRO ecosystem, probably 17 years now. As you'll detect from the accent, I'm not originally from the UK. So any jokes you want to make about Americans, no issue whatsoever. The accent is Canadian. Lucia is joining us. She's been with SYSPRO since
Hi.
2005. Hopefully, you'll have met her over the years as well. And I suspect we may have a little bit of an intro from her dog later on today as well. So we're going to kick off today. Hopefully you get a chance to see us, but for the rest of the session, we'll turn off our webcams so that we can focus on really the bones of what we're going to cover today. Excellent. Now, the idea for today's session is really to talk about SYSPRO 8 and the functionality that we've introduced in the product with SYSPRO 8, as well as in the life of SYSPRO 8. But before we jump into all of that, what I'd like to do is get a better understanding of where you're coming from today. We've got quite a few people that have joined us, and I'm curious if I can launch a quick poll to get a sense of what version of SYSPRO you're currently on. So on your screens, you'll see a poll. Are we looking at customers that are on 6, 6.1, 7, 8? Not quite sure. All right, it's looking pretty good. There we go. I'm going to start closing the poll now. It looks like we've got about 74 people that are currently running SYSPRO 7. Really good to see. So most of the sites that have joined us today are on SYSPRO 7. We've got about 13% that are on 6.1 and about 4% that are running version 6 issue 9. So just to put that into context, let's look at some of the ages of these versions that we're running on. If you're sitting on issue 9, issue 10, they were initially released back in 2004 or 2008, and they've been retired for a good 8 years. SYSPRO 8 itself was released in July 2018, so it's nice, healthy age at this point. We've got about 100 customers here in the UK that are running SYSPRO 8 either in live or in various versions of testing as well. So it gives you a good sense of where you're at. A lot of what you're going to see today, especially if you're currently sitting on SYSPRO 6 issue 9, the functionality is going to carry through from the version that you're running, but you'll see some of the screens getting updated, some of the changes that your users will have to get used to as you're looking forward to the journey of updating as well. So as we move forward in talking about the SYSPRO lifecycle itself, I want to frame what we're looking at within the themes that SYSPRO's developed in driving business transformation. These are the product roadmap themes that we presented at the customer event last year. This is what SYSPRO looks at fundamentally in terms of some of the challenges that we know are existing in the business space today that we need to help address by improving SYSPRO. And the focus areas that are there are around improved control of the internal operations. These are your business functions that happen on a day-to-day basis within your business itself, within the four walls that you have. Wrap around the fact that we've always been in an interconnected world, and it's becoming all that much more important for us to engage up and down our supply chain. The supply chain and the interconnectivity of it, how we engage not just with our customers, but also our suppliers, and the end-to-end we need to be able to expand that out and have different conversations. As we're doing that, of course, it becomes important to make sure that our organizational controls are still intact. We're still adhering to the business rules that we have. We're exposing information that is needed to the right person at the right time and making sure that we've still got that security built in. And all of that is wrapped around the information that you've got within the ERP that you've been building up over the years. SYSPRO's got such a rich amount of information in there. You want to leverage that to help drive and move forward business decisions at a strategic level. And SYSPRO's used this to build and expand on not just the existing functionality, but also the roadmap, future roadmap that we're looking at. And we can see that that's being recognized also by our peers and other ERP vendors. And if you take a look at some of the recognition that SYSPRO has received, it's nice to know that it's one of the most popular ERP softwares in 2020 from Capterra, continuing on to being on the top list of G2, which is all user-based. Users will go ahead and poll and rank, a little bit like a popularity contest in some ways, but it's in the leader quadrant. Over the last 5 years, it's also topped the leader quadrant for the technology matrix and for nucleus research. But I think for me, it's about the fact that customer satisfaction is still high, and IDC was definitely key in recognizing that as well. So for me, it's more about just the fact that, yes, we know SYSPRO does a lot of work and we use it on a day-to-day basis, but how does it compare to what's out there as well? That's not what we're here for, though. Really, we want to know about what's new in SYSPRO. So let's dig into some of the new functionality that we have in here. What we're going to cover today is going to be just a tip of the iceberg. There is much, much more that's available and lots of resources for it as well. But let's start out by looking at some of the improvements that have been made at the macro level to help with information and intelligence. The first thing I want to talk about is the introduction of insights. These are lovely little tiles that give you at-a-glance information, quick snapshots to allow you to drill in. Insights were introduced with SYSPRO 7, but they've been improved significantly over the journey of 8, and you can see that that's been expanded with a builder to allow you to build your own, and activity queries to then allow you to expand out and pull the information from where you need. As you're looking at expanding, improving your organization, hiring new bodies in, do they know your core information? What have we done around improving the searching, the ability to surface up the information quickly at your fingertips? If you've attended a session before, you'll have heard me talk a little bit about the Innovation Lab focusing on artificial intelligence, machine learning. Great buzzwords that have been around for a while. But what we can see on the roadmap on the longer term journey is also about making that accessible, making it applicable to our businesses. And you'll see, we won't talk too much about that today, but you'll definitely see more of that going in. And then the latest release that came out, SYSPRO's expanded out into having data access and subscription in the OData model. And really quickly, just want to show you what that means. It's about extending out SYSPRO's information from the back end into the tool of choice that you have if you need to expand it and export it out, make it available to the external ecosystem that you work with. OData is just an example of this. It's been around for a while, but we've made it simpler. Subscription, for example, into Excel, all you do is link into your SYSPRO data source and pull the information out. I promise you it's not going to be all death by PowerPoint today. I'd like to now go ahead and see if we can take a look at the software itself and dig into some of the new functionality that we talked about. And for that, I'm going to hand over to Lucia to see if she can just give us a little bit of a showcase on the actionable insights. So over to you, Lucia, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Darshini. So okay, business insights. So basically, business insights are essentially SQL scripts that are exposed as tiles in a SYSPRO web view. So these tiles, they're context driven and they enable you to act instantly on events or things happening in your organization. So SYSPRO 8 comes with some out of the box tiles to get you started, but the real benefit is that you can create your own using the business activity query builder and the insight tile definition. We'll take a look at those in a moment. So as you can see here, I've got some different insight tiles on my desktop, and I've categorized them into different areas. But if we take a look at this one here, purchase orders due this week, and click in. So the context of this tile is to show what purchase deliveries you are expecting this week. But this could also have been a tile that is just showing late expected deliveries or deliveries just due today on there. So you can really kind of filter down on the information that you want to pull out. So the benefit of this means that the person down in Goods Inwards has visibility of what is likely to turn up at the delivery gate, and it can also be used to expedite from on there. So if we look at some of the information on here, as you've probably noticed, what I've done on this example is I'm showing the purchase order actually as a barcode. So if I wanted a really quick way to get a printout of some purchase order barcodes to scan from, I can actually facilitate that from my Insight tile. So you're able to print from here. I could also, email this list off and such like on there. So we can see each of these columns. These are all list views. So I've got the same kind of functionality that I have throughout SYSPRO, where you see list views of information. So I can sort, I can group. So if I want to group them into my different suppliers, and I've also got the ability to search down through all of the columns of data. So if I locate one of my purchase orders of my bath tap set, you can see here it's filtered down and it's pulled up that purchase order. Now I've also got the ability to action from these Insight tiles as well. So if we click on here, I can actually hyperlink off to other areas. So if I wanted to, and if this delivery is turned up, I can actually go directly into the purchase receipt program from here. So obviously this means I haven't got to go out and find the other programs. So it's a more efficient way of kind of navigating through the system and carrying out these processes on there. So just close that one down. So key performance indicators on tiles can also be used to highlight values that approach or exceed predetermined objectives or thresholds. So this lets you proactively keep an eye on approaching targets, and we can change the look of the tile to bring this to users' attention. So you'll probably notice we've got some numbers on these tiles. So I've got a count on here. So this is telling me that there's 10 purchase orders due this week. I've got a value on my open orders, and we can see on my customer complaints tile, I've got a count of 6 on there, but I've also changed the color of my tile and put a little warning triangle on there. Basically what I've been able to do is set a target, and when I sort of hit those thresholds, I can change the properties, how the tile looks to make it a bit more visible to a person looking at that. So if we look to see how we can build these tiles and generate your own, SYSPRO provide this business activity query builder, and effectively what it is a tool like a wizard to help you put together the SQL views. So in good old-fashioned Blue Peter style, I've got one here that I've been working on. And what I want to do for this view is I've got some custom form fields against my my stock codes, and I want to pull those out onto a tile so I can use it to be able to search through different attributes and have visibility of that information. So very simply, you can give it a name. You tell it what the primary data source is, and there's a little drop down which will show you all the SYSPRO tables. And the purpose of this view is to look at the stock code. So I'm selecting the inventory master table. So once selected, it pops it down into this area here, and this is where you can add in other tables that you want to join. So for example, my custom form fields, they're held in the InvMaster Plus table, so I can link in that table as well. So then when we come over to this section here, this is where I tell what fields, what columns of data I want to appear in my view. So as you can see, I can select the data source, and from each of the data sources, what fields I want on there. So because I've got InvMaster and InvMaster Plus, I can choose one of those and I can go in, and it basically gives me a list of all the fields available, and it's just a case of ticking the ones you want to select on there. So I can keep adding to this, and then what I'm able to then do is sort of validate the SQL, and it will generate the code in for me. So it will actually generate the script based on the parameters that I've put in on here. And then all I need to do is save and publish that, and that will make that view available when I come to create my tiles on there. So if we take a look at the insight tile KPI definition, from here I can manage my tiles. So I can manage any targets and thresholds I want to put on there. I can use it to create or amend existing tiles, and I can also use it to import tiles that have come from other data sources on there. So if we use my little search filter to find my customer complaint tile, so we can see here, there's my customer complaint tile. And if we have a look on here, we can go in and we can edit the properties. So we can set targets at a whole system level, or we can have targets at a company level, or we can even go down to roles or individual operators. So somebody could have a different threshold to somebody else. But in my example, keep it nice and simple. I'm applying this to the whole system. And if we just click on and edit, we can see here against my customer complaints, I've got a target value of 0. I don't want any customer complaints on there. But as soon as I do start hitting my threshold, so in this example, as soon as a customer complaint gets logged, over a value of 1, we can see there now that my tile color will change color. So we can see I'm going to the warning of orange, and I'm also putting up my little warning icon on there. Now we can also put other thresholds, so we can get to a critical level. So when I start getting 3 or more customer complaints, we can see here now that I want my tile to change to red, and again I'm still keeping my warning on there. So hence why this tile is showing up as red with a little warning triangle. It's because I've got six customer complaints on there. So we can use these insight tiles to drive out information, to be able to search and quickly access information on there. But what we've also got in terms of improved searching is the predictive text search capability throughout the SYSPRO processes. So for example, let's go into sales order entry. Now, I may be dealing with a customer that's perhaps part of a large group where the customer name is, they're quite similar. So I've got lots of customers with very similar names. But I know, for example, this customer, the actual town they're from. So I can actually start typing in, the town name on there, and there we can see I've got my customer. So I've been able to search on information that isn't necessarily the customer name or the customer number, but I've still been able to pull up that information by the data that I've selected. And as you can see there, it's picked it up from address line 3. I can also do this when we look at stock lines as well. So again, for this example, the customer is using catalogue numbers. And in my example, I've got the catalogue number as a custom form field. So in this example, I'm not using a standard SYSPRO field to hold this, but I can still use it in my searching. So in this example, if we start typing in the catalogue number, we can see the system will pick that up. And if I just show you the filter options on here, we can see we've got our standard out of the box places where people might typically search for the stock information. But we've also been able to add on a custom form field in this example, the catalogue ID. And when I'm happy with that, I can select it and the system will substitute it with the actual stock code on there. So just come out of that. Okay, and back over to you, Darshni.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lucia. It's a great way to be able to showcase information at a glance and make it really quickly and easily accessible as well. There are lots of tools that are available in SYSPRO. You've got everything from the tiles that Lucia showcased through to application builders that also allow you to surface up information. So it's very much about using the right tool for the right job and expanding and leveraging that configurability that's available within the tool set as well. The next level that I want to talk about now that we drill in is around the improved organizational control that we have. And there are three areas that we want to talk about. The first is around system management and improvements that have been made to that, financial management, and enterprise management. On the enterprise management, what we're talking about is large organizations where you yourself may have multiple divisions, multiple branches, multiple geographic locations, and you're engaging with customers at that as well. SYSPRO has been on a journey around improving functionality within the software itself and expanding on existing functionality. So one of the things that we saw being introduced as part of the 8 journey was the ability to accept and make payments across multiple customers. So if you've got a group of customers all sending you one payment, to allocate that across multiple customers wasn't an easy task. And with the enterprise management journey, it's very much about how we can go ahead and apply that single payment across multiple customers, no matter how many different invoices they have. And it's the same thing. If you've got centralized procurement processes where you've got an individual department responsible for making payments on your behalf, it's also about expanding out to suppliers across multiple entities and being able to deliver that. If I drill into the system management and some of the improvements in and around there, this is more for your techies, the guys and gals who are responsible for the care and feed of SYSPRO and improvements that we've made in and around that. One of the themes that we've seen, especially as that move towards work from home has come in, is improved security. Cybersecurity tends to be one of those much talked about areas. And one of the ways that we've improved is around authentication. There's single sign-on for Active Directory, but also more importantly, and used a little bit more frequently, is around multi-factor authentication. So remember those lovely sticky notes that we have on our monitors that give us the SYSPRO user ID and password. You can no longer go ahead and log in as someone else without having an additional code that you may need to enter in or a QR code that you need to scan in as part of that multi-factor authentication to prove you are in fact who you are, because at the end of the day, we've got quite a bit of secure information that we're storing within the ERP, and accessing and controlling access to that is important. With 8, we saw a journey migrating towards being a SQL-only environment and moving away from keeping data outside of SQL, and that journey's only progressed and continued as we go along. We've improved support for Office 365 in the way that we integrate in the back end to other Office products. Installation and updates for customers that are currently on SYSPRO 6, you're used to having the idea of a weekly port that moved to a monthly port. And with 8, we introduced the concept of new releases, where up until now we've had 2 releases a year. Going forward to this year, we're having a single release. So fewer big changes that are being made in the system, continual fixes that are available throughout, but the way that you adopt them and implement them mirrors very similar to what we would do with Windows hotfixes, the ability to go ahead and add and remove them within the control panel of your operating system. So it makes the management of your ports a lot simpler. And there are a number of administrative dashboards that have already been added into the system as well to expand and help all the way from managing your operators through to compliance, through to SQL, and having that information surface up right within SYSPRO at a glance, all on one screen, makes it a lot simpler to manage. I promised to talk a little bit around some of the changes in financial management. Multi-currency has always been available for SYSPRO since the beginning of 6.0 as well. And with that, the journey continues. We continue to improve and expand on that, especially right now. If I look at the currency fluctuations just in the last 2 weeks that have kicked in as a result of everything that's happening in the world, this becomes something that's more strategic, the ability to go ahead and buy and sell. Depending on where your suppliers are, your currency will have an impact on your incoming costs. And so expanding on the ability to capture your currencies and your variances is something that we've seen improve in SYSPRO 8. Little one, the ability to post in detail to control accounts. This just means that your reconciliation becomes easier, and the same improvements around balancing. Again, when you're doing your month end, when you're doing your balancing to the GL, it's about improving and giving you tools to make that a simpler process. We're going to talk about two additional things on the financial management improvements that help with that month-end processing, the closing, and cash flow, cash control. When I talk about month-end improvements, there are two elements. With SYSPRO historically, when you go ahead and process your month end, the balance function was automatically incorporated as part of that. So you may have run your balance overnight as part of an automation routine, but when you came in to do the month end, as you wanted to close your ledger, the month end process would also kick off the balance. And what we noticed was the ability now in 8, SYSPRO has added in the functionality to separate the two. So you have the ability to do purely month end because you've already run your balance overnight. The other element of this, we've seen improvement significantly in the journey with 8 as well. Started in 7, but we see a lot more of it is speeding up that balance function and optimizing it. Poor example, but I do want to share some numbers with you. With the optimization, there was a customer in Africa who's running their inventory balance, and it would take an outrageous 6.5 hours, just under 6.5 hours. And through working through this, SYSPRO was able to bring that processing time and optimize it down to 11 seconds. Now, if you're a skeptic like me, you're going to wonder how sensible of a data set was this, how dirty was their data. It's actually not a bad data set. 43,000 SKUs. We've got some bins enabled against that serialization, no lots, lots of movements that are happening as well. And for SYSPRO to be able to bring that down definitely helps improve that overall process. So that's something that all contributes towards moving towards efficiencies. The next thing that we would talk about is managing cash control and managing that and bringing that back in. And rather than listen to me talk about it, I think it's best if I let Lucia actually showcase some of the things we've introduced with Dunning and what that actually means. Over to you.
Thanks, Darshini. Okay, so SYSPRO's Dunning system manages the generating and distribution of periodic reminders for unpaid invoices. Once the Dunning functionality is configured, the process can be automated to routinely send out payment notifications. So if we go directly into generate Dunning letters, and I'm just going to pick out a single customer in this example and do my review. So we can see here we've got a customer, Amazon, on there. We can see we've got a couple of invoices which are unpaid. So what you're able to do is you can link your customers, and if you want to, individual invoices to Dunning groups. And typically the Dunning group will be aligned to the payment terms that you have set with your customers. So for example, 30 days payment or 60 days payment. So each Dunning group has one or more Dunning statuses, and the status determines which Dunning letter will be generated during the Dunning run. So Dunning letters typically follow a progression from friendly reminder to more persuasive demands for payments should the customer's invoice remain unpaid. So the wording and the document layout is configured via these Dunning statuses, and you can print, email, or fax if perhaps your letter needs to go to a prehistoric cave somewhere. So we can see here I've got my customer Amazon, and I've set them to a Dunning group on here, which typically in our example, Amazon are terrible at paying. So we've created a more, let's say, threatening letter to be applied to their payment reminders. But just to give you a little view of what a reminder might look like, if I just flick this onto the preview, and we can kind of see the type of letter that we can get generated out. And as I said, these can also be automatically invoiced as well. So what the system will do, it will generate and pick up the appropriate letter with the appropriate message for the invoice numbers that lie at that status. So you can see I've got a very crude example on there, but I'm threatening Amazon with legal action. So let's see how well that does us in this example. So what I'll just do now, if we change the criteria and include all of my customers, we can get an idea here now of all the different kind of different Dunning groups and different done-in statuses. So if we have a look at my pets at home, we can see pets at home is on done in group 1, and they've got a couple of invoices that fall into different statuses. So if we just go in and take a look at the status maintenance for our done in group 1 and have a look on here. So you can see in this example, done in group 1, I've just got two statuses. So the first one is just a friendly reminder, and it's the payment isn't late yet. We're just giving them a reminder to tell them that it will be due in 2 days. So you can use this to kind of preempt, just to remind your customers that payment is imminent on there. And then the second status is picking up to say that your invoice is now overdue. So we can control this information. We can control the description. We can put what message we want to go out, and we can choose what document format. So as I said, you can have different formats dependent on the severity, or how polite or how rude you might want to be, and then you can choose how you want to send that out on there. So we have a look at another customer. We can have a look at NeoDoc, and we can see we've already sent a done-in letter to this customer for this unpaid invoice. So this one remains unchecked. But if you want to send them another reminder to say, look, you still haven't paid this, we can just click the box, and then that will get included in the payment run, in the generation of the letter run again. One more, if we look at our Amazon, as you see, I've got my Amazon on my firm done in group. So this is where, I can choose a different type of letter on there. So remember, these can be run automatically, so you can get these to schedule. So there's very little administration work required once the configuration is done. So nobody has to go through and trawl through all the customer invoices, see which ones are unpaid, and do all that debt chasing. We can make this a very quick and easy process to get those letters generated out. Okay, so back over to you.
Lovely, Lucia. Thanks for that. It definitely helps in terms of automation in your credit collection. Hopefully simplifies the credit management process as well. So if we now start going down a level, I'm talking a little bit about improvements that have been made in the system around supply chain, but also some of the improvements around internal operations. There's quite a bit of concerted effort that's been put in to improve the inventory control, and associated with that, the visibility that we have. What we're finding more and more, especially in the last couple of years with some of the challenges that we've run into, and as I speak to different customers, there's very much a shift from just-in-time inventory to just-in-case inventory. And as we're investing more and more into some of the inventory items that we store within our own four walls, it becomes more important for us to make sure that we know where things are, because we're investing far more into it, and we don't want to overorder, but we still want to make sure we have enough stock on hand and are able to manage that. So the visibility improvements we'll talk about a little bit more in Showcase. And then the next piece we've got is I love the naming terminology of this. This is all about missions and tests, and I waver between religious epiphanies and James Bond, and I think I've decided to land on James Bond on this one. It's all about a mission, if you should choose to accept it or not. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to wrap up this particular section with some strategic procurement concepts. So just at a high level, some improved inventory control. What SYSPRO has introduced is the idea of picking, giving you more visibility of an item between having it perhaps sitting where you've stored it for longer term storage to now transitioning to getting ready to get delivered out of the warehouse, and increasing visibility around the pick cycle associated with that to allow you to pack, ship, and put away. There's also the introduction of cycle counting to be able to expand on the standard stock take so that you're keeping track of what that inventory looks like. But I want Lucia to go in and show a little bit more around some of the improvements, the little bits that will really hopefully save you time and effort. So let's talk about inventory, Lucia.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go back into SYSPRO. So SYSPRO's multiple bin system lets you keep track of the exact location of stock items in a warehouse. So we can go into the warehouse bin query, and I select my warehouse on here. So now I have a helicopter view of all my stock in the warehouse. So you can see here the whole of the warehouse and all the different items in there. But what I'm able to do is I can drill down into my individual bin locations. So as we go down, we can see the stock that's in there. So we got, in this example, we got some pick shelf areas on there where I'm just holding one product per bin. And then we can see I've got some a bulk bin here where we are holding multiple different items in there. So you can kind of be flexible of whether or not you're holding one stock part per bin, or whether you want to have multiple items in there. So if we go back onto my kind of helicopter view, I can also use my sort of filtering in here. So if I want to find a specific product, so if we start filtering down, we can see here I've got my stock code in here, and we can see that this product is held into two bin locations. So it's held in this bin here, which is in a sort of pick shelf area, but I'm also holding it in my bulk location as well. Now, what we're able to do is, for example, if I wanted to perhaps replenish my pick shelf, I want ideally to have 100 in there. What I'm able to do is have an action on here, so I can drive an action off. Now I've got some choices, so I can create a bin transfer, which will do immediate transfer for this one location to my other location, or I could do a warehouse transfer if I want to push it out to a completely different warehouse. Or what I could do is generate a put away. So this will generate a mission and task for this activity to be carried out. So in this example, I'm going to create a put away transaction or mission for somebody else to go and actually do that physical bin transfer. So I'm just going to just move 10 across, because we only needed 10 to replenish our pick face, and then this is where I can choose where I want it to go, and the system will only filter out those valid bins that are related to that item. So we can see there's my pick shelf bin, and if I want, I can put a bit of notation on here, so replen, and then post that. Okay, so what this has done now, this has generated a task for somebody else then to go and do that actual bin transfer. So I can come along to my mission and task review, okay, and I can do a review on here, and this is showing me all my different missions and tasks. So I can group these into sort of cycle counts, into picks that need to take place, and then down here we can see my put away bin transfers, and here's the one that I've just generated. Now again, I've got further choices on here. If I want to, I can assign this to an individual or a team. So I might have a put away team that pick up these tasks and go and action them. Or if I want to, I can actually drive out that transaction directly from within here as well. So I've ticked it on. If I hit complete, basically this will transact that bin transfer on there now. So I've got the ability to also do this from a mobile device via the SYSPRO app as well. So if I pass back over to Darshini.
Good stuff, Lucia. So we're starting to see a bit of a journey towards having work to lists and expansion of that work to list, especially with that mission and task review that we saw. And of course, Lucia, she's a keener. She's not just given herself a task, but actually gone ahead and actioned it right away, which means that we have the ability to react to items as they're needed and mimic what's happening in the real life as well. The expansion of that warehousing functionality, of course, doesn't replace a full-blown WMS system or barcode scanning necessarily, but it is about that journey and expanding that functionality out. The other challenge that we've seen in and around businesses today. Procurement, we talked to a number of businesses, and can we get things on time? Can we get them delivered from the right place? A couple of things to think about. Who's actually making those requests? Do you have the right individuals with the permissions requesting the items? Do you have some sort of policies in place? Making sure that that gets adhered to as you're building that out. Who are you buying from? Your vendor selection is something that I know a lot of businesses are thinking about right now. It's about making sure that you're sourcing strategically, depending on how much and where you're buying from. Do you have multiple suppliers, alternate suppliers for your key items? And do you have policies in place to be able to adhere to that as well? And then finally, when you're engaging with your vendors, are you automating some of that request? Are you using requesting for quote? What's your negotiation process looking like? Are they able to update information easily for you? There's some key areas that have been added in to SYSPRO 8 to help with that as well. The first thing we're going to talk about is the concept of sourcing policy, the ability to agree and have agreed contracts mimicked within the SYSPRO ecosystem, the ability to raise quotes and request that out to your supply chain, and having a portal for an interactive web platform. And then, of course, we've got the reverse supply chain, which is where you need to return items if you do, for any reason, back to your suppliers. So if we drill into some of the items that we have with sourcing policy, there are a variety of policies that you can define for your purchasing team as they're making purchases, all the way from round robin, where you're spreading the love between your suppliers, through to identifying who's going to provide the lowest cost within the lead time that you need. And it's about making sure that those policies are A, defined, and B, adhered to as you're dealing with the system. So we've got sourcing policies that kick in, but what about asking your suppliers for this? And this is where the request for quote process comes in. It's the ability to send quotes out automatically to a variety of different suppliers. Because at the end of the day, this is negotiation. You're not going to necessarily purchase from just one supplier, or rather solicit just one supplier. So it's about improving your budgeting, your pricing, your cost control, and fundamentally, it's about improving that governance. And as you're digitizing that process and simplifying it, you're taking that heavy lifting and shifting that load a little bit. Won't get into all of the details of this, but the way that the request code comes in is you raise a requisition, you choose who you're going to go out to in terms of your suppliers. You may have a number of different suppliers. You're going to send this out, and as they get it, they're going to be able to go ahead and negotiate back with you as to what they're going to be able to provide and by when. And as you accept that final quote, you've signed that contract off, you want to go ahead and raise that purchase order so that you're able to go ahead and capture that. Now, this is something you're well familiar with. This is all something that we deal with on a regular basis as part of the business, but it's the flow that is now mimicked within SYSPRO as well. And as part of that flow, what we have is the concept of a portal to allow the suppliers to engage with you. And rather than talk to it, what I'm going to do is hand over to Lucia so she can show us what we mean.
Okay, thanks, Darshini. So we just call this up. Okay, so if I just go onto my my internet browser, so the new request for quote module in SYSPRO allows for activities to be pushed out to the supply chain. So suppliers can have access to a portal that allows them to respond to requests for quotes and also to have visibility of their trading history with you. So I'm just going to log in as my supplier. So we can see I've got this on here and just make sure caps lock is off and put my password in there. So I've logged in as a supplier, and you can see I get my my supplier dashboard, so to speak. So we can see it split. There's a couple of elements on here. I've got my request for quote dashboard, and I've also got the ability to view my kind of trading history with my suppliers as well. So you can see on my request for quote insights that we've got some tiles in here, and this is showing me that I've got a new quote request that's come through, so I need to action that, but it'll also give me an update of what's happened over the course of time with other requests for quotes. So what I'm able to do as a supplier now is I can actually go into that request for quote and actually make my my best price and my lead time directly from the portal. So this means that suppliers can be doing the administrative work themselves, saving on your internal processing requirements. So we can see here I've got a request to give a price for supplying 10 of my bath tap sets. We can see if there's any extra notation, so we can push out any extra information to our supplier regarding this request for quote, and we can also attach any documentation. So, you know, this could be a drawing or a technical spec, you know, further information about the product they're being asked to quote for. But ultimately, what the supplier is able to do is put in what the price is and what the lead time will be, and I can save that on there. So it's just basically telling me that the closing date for this is Friday the 11th. So if I want to do, you know, any amendments to that, I've got until tomorrow to make changes, and then the request for quote process on that part will conclude on there. So also as a supplier, I can go in and, as I said, I can look at my trading history, but I might want to see what my outstanding invoices are, you know, what status they're at with the company on here. So we can see there's a whole load of invoices that are waiting to be paid. We can see at the moment the status is released for payment, which I guess is the modern day equivalent of the check is in the post. Anyway, on that note, I shall pass back over to Darshini.
That's it. I'm going to run down and check my mail now. Thanks, Lucia. So the enhancements that we've got around procurement, there are a number of different moving parts that all help and tighten up the procurement areas of your business. If we move internally, we looked at quite a few of the improvements already that have been introduced around the warehousing side of things, the improved visibility, the pick, pack, ship areas of it. There are two other areas, the operations management and the quality management, that have seen improvements in the system as well. On the operations management, you'll have heard us speak to and talk about with SYSPRO 7, the introduction of SYSPRO manufacturing operations management. This is the ability to schedule, and in turn to scheduling, also make published information available, keep track of what's happening in the production floor overall to increase your visibility and improve your production flow. So with the introduction of manufacturing operations management, which we affectionately call MOM, SYSPRO is able to go ahead and expand that production functionality. If I look at some of the quality pieces as well, there are quite a bit of new bits of functionality that are being brought in and around improving the traceability of particular goods, which is getting more and more important depending on the industry you're in, various legislative requirements and changes that have been made as well. And I think what I'd like to do is actually have Lucia show some of the new functionality that's being added in to help with that recall process. So over to you, Lucia.
Thank you. So if we go back to my SYSPRO desktop, okay, so we can use the new product recall facilities to identify where batches or serials have come from and where have they been issued to, and identify all the affected customers, sales orders, suppliers, purchase orders, and jobs. So if we go into product recall now, I have a batch of lemon juice concentrate, which I have been told is possibly contaminated. So I need to investigate to see what, or if anything else has been spoiled, whether, you know, what we need to do to investigate this. So I've got my batch number, which is 3Q, and let's let the system do the rest of the heavy lifting for us. So we can see there's my batch lemon juice concentrate, and let's start the review. So we can see that as well as bringing up my batch for my lemon juice concentrate, it's also brought into other stock codes that are related to it, that are affected. So these are included in my search criteria as well. So we can have a look to see what's affected here. So if we start off with with the jobs, we can see why these other two stock codes have been included. So we've got a couple of jobs on here, and if we look at the first job, we can see there's our batch of lemon juice concentrate, and it's actually been issued to this parent part on there and to that batch number. And then if we come to this other job, we can see that that batch number has itself been issued to an end product on there. So that gives us the relationship of why these two other batches have been included in this search as well. So we can have a look at the affected customers, so we could see where this end product might have been sold to. We can see affected sales orders as well, so we got the actual detail of the sales order. We can see the suppliers, so we can see there's the supplier that we purchased it from, and it will also give us the purchase order as well. Again, using standard SYSPRO capabilities on here. If I wanted to see what else was purchased, you know, on that purchase order, I could then go in. So it could quite possibly be some other batches are also contaminated. Maybe there was a spill in the back of the delivery truck, but I've got the capability to have access to that information from here. So I can use this just as a review, just as a tool to find out. But if I want to take that further and perhaps do some actioning on this issue, I can use the product recall quarantine facility to do that. So if we just call this lemon recall, can't spell. We got an idea to do it, you know, a full recall where we can get the system to put things on hold, or just as a mock, you know, if we need to test our upwards and downwards traceability. So I've got exactly the same capability here to pull up that review screen, but this time now it's going to actually use the data that I'm presenting it to it. So we'll call up our review, and I'm going to select these three batches and apply that. So what I've got the ability to do now is, if I want to, I can set to put these each of these batches on hold, so to make sure I can't, you know, issue them or use them in any of my other SYSPRO processes. And then I can also put some actions on here. So it might be that I want to quarantine that one, or I want to set that to inspection, or we know this one's damaged, so we want to scrap it. So I've got some capabilities here now to actually make some changes to the information held on that. And if we find during our investigation that everything needs to be scrapped, we can set that. Or if we find that things are okay, we can release the hold, and the system will take the holds off. So hopefully that gives you a little view of what the recall facilities that are provided in SYSPRO now. And I'm going to pass the baton back over to Darshni.
Lovely, Lucia. Thank you very much for that. Now, as you can see, the recall functionality, there's the full recall, the mock recall, and mock recalls oftentimes can get used by organizations when you're trying to solicit and win new business. The larger organizations will want you to prove that you can do a recall in case of emergency in a relatively short manner, and the mock recall functionality is good to be able to showcase that. Now, obviously, if you've got deeper quality requirements, there are integrations to other products that we have available as well. But as an introduction, there is definitely improvements in SYSPRO that are worth exploring and investigating a little bit more. We've had a bit of a whirlwind tour so far of some of the functionality in SYSPRO. We've tried to pick and showcase some of the benefits that you can get throughout different parts of the business that will hopefully give you a bit of a sense of some of the things you can look forward to with SYSPRO 8. As always, we have to wrap up with a lovely little slide that talk about some of the benefits of it's talking about driving performance. Are you looking at improving your collaboration? Are you looking to improve your productivity or making sure that you're compliant? And so at a high level, hopefully we've given you a little bit of food for thought. Now, getting close to the top of wrapping up, and before I do that, going to have a quick question for you. Is this something that you're already thinking about? Are you looking at upgrading to 8 at this point in time, already in the process? And so I've got another quick poll for you to find out where we're at. Are you looking to upgrade SYSPRO 8? Where are you in that journey? Excellent. It looks like most people that are going to vote have voted at this point, so I'm going to close that poll. And it's good to see that 13% are already on SYSPRO 8, so hopefully we've shown you some things that you're already leveraging or are able to leverage. And then for others that are down in the journey, hopefully you'll get to welcome along. At this point, though, I do want to open the floor up for questions, and I see that we already have one question available. James, the question that he's asked is there an API-like method to link SYSPRO directly to the supplier's ERP? And that's a good question, James. There's a couple of different ways that we can address this. SYSPRO's got a rich layer that is the equivalent of API we've had for quite a few years called the business object layer. And that allows for that business logic to be invoked in an automated fashion to allow you to speak back and forth to the supplier's ERP. And with K3, we've got the ability to use and leverage data switch to call that to be able to integrate out to external systems such as your supplier's ERP system. So it very much depends on how their ERP system is able to engage back with you and vice versa. But absolutely, yes, there are ways to be able to have systems talk to each other, and we've done that a few times for other customers as well. So definitely get in touch with your account manager if you'd like to know more and explore that a little bit further. We'd be able to help out with that. We'll take a look and see if there's any other questions. How does it deal with suppliers honoring old prices when booking in stock? And so it depends. In this case, the portal itself is looking very much at new quotations and moving that forward. So it's about going ahead and pulling in new quotes only rather than old prices. So if they're able to go ahead and honor old prices, that's something that they would be able to pull through in the new quote as it's coming through as well. So hopefully that answers your question there, Andrew. I've got a question here from Mark. Mark wants to know, is the recall retrospective? So will it convert existing data? Not quite sure I understand it. Does it mean if it's looking at SYSPRO 7 data as you're upgrading, or are we looking at existing open orders, existing jobs? If you just want to drop a quick note to clarify that for me, that would be great. Now it's a race of how quickly Mark can type to clarify. Will it work with the existing database? It does look at all the open orders as it gets converted over. So yes, it will take a look at the existing data depending on what state it's in. So we can have a play with that definitely as you're upgrading to SYSPRO 8 in your test environment to see as the data gets pushed through. Hopefully that answers your question. Excellent. I'm actually going to ask, is there anything in particular that you've seen today that you think is good? If you're already on 8, have you explored and used new functionality in 8 that you haven't seen showcased today that you think has really helped your business as well? If you can use the chat to go ahead and add that in, that would be great. I see a question. Dunning, do you need Automail to send the letter automatically? The nice thing about the Dunning functionality is it has a separate email address to send that email out to. So you could use just standard SYSPRO emailing to email out the notifications. You don't have to leverage Automail. The only reason I would look at perhaps adding Automail on there is if you've got additional documentation that you want to send with the invoices as well. Excellent. Well, it looks like we're getting to the close of the top of the hour. And so at this point, we'll go ahead and get close to wrapping up. There are a few questions that are coming through that I will have to pick up separately and email you out, but I want to make sure that I honor your time. And I want to say thank you very much for joining us today. Our next session is probably going to happen in a month's time, so keep an eye on the newsletter. And thanks again for joining us this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.